Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about why your tests may look worse a couple months after you initially took them. So we're talking about like your mycotoxin, your mold test, or your urine test for looking at heavy metals, or your urine test for looking at chemicals or like plastics, pesticides, herbicides, or glyphosate, which is Roundup. So the reason why this happens, but first, if you haven't been here before, my name is Evan Hirsch. I'm the EnergyMD. Go ahead and smash that like button and hit the subscribe button if you want to get more videos about how to increase your energy, because we are on a mission to help 1 million leaders, executives, and everyday people take their energy to the next level so they can be more fulfilled, have more success, and have more fun in life. So the reason why this happens is that initially, when you're testing these things, heavy metals, chemicals, and molds, that your detoxification pathways are clogged. And so by that, I mean that there's pathways in the body that you need to be open in order to get toxins out. Okay, so the way that we actually excrete things out of the body are through breath, exhaling, through the skin, through the urine, and through the stool. Now, when we go from bottom to top, we're looking at like the intestines. We're looking at liver and kidney and lymph, which is the garbage system of the body. And then we're looking at neural lymph, which is the garbage system in the brain. So each one of those pathways has to be open in order for you to have success removing these toxins, because most of these toxins actually are in the tissues. So they're in the organs. They're not in the bloodstream. They're not in the urine. They're in this extravascular space, so outside of the blood vessels. So when you start to remove them and you start to bind them up and you start to pull them into the bloodstream and then collect them in the urine, guess what? Initially, there's not much there, because you have not opened up these clogged pathways. So once you start doing it and you go through our 4-step process, then you are going to notice that you're going to, when you repeat these lab tests, whether it's 3, 6, or 12 months, you're going to notice that there's a whole bunch more toxins that are being dumped of your heavy metals, your chemicals, your molds. And a lot of it has to do with the toxins that you have removed out of the body and this pathway that you have opened up, like we do in step 3 of our process. So hopefully that helps explain things. But what is going to happen over the course of time is that once you see that huge escape, I should say, or that release of a lot of these toxins, is that over time, you're going to see improvement. They're going to be lessening. However, there are some different binding coefficients and some different things to consider. So there are certain things that in the body that want to get out first. And then there are certain binders that we recommend that you take, or certain things that are going to bind up or remove some of these toxins that have preferences with some of these different toxins. Okay, so if we're dealing with molds, chemicals, and heavy metals, there may be some heavy metals, like let's say mercury is going to come out first. And then, so you may notice there's not a lot of lead when you initially check your test, but then 6 months, there's a whole bunch of lead because the mercury is all gone. And now that binder is binding on to the next toxin that is that's ready for it. And then it's going to be moving it out. So that's called the binding coefficient, where each one of these binders, they bind in different ways to different things. And so there's going to be a stacking order of these coefficients, where they're going to bind preferentially to certain things, get those out, then they go to the next thing, get that out. So that's sometimes also what we see, especially when it comes to things like heavy metals, chemicals, and molds, where, if you are exposed to mold, you're going to be usually exposed to different mycotoxins or mold toxins that have been produced by that mold. And then you're going to pull out generally one at a time. So you'll see that one is completely gone, but maybe the next one then is elevated. I just saw the other day, somebody had gliotoxin that was very elevated on their first test and not much on ochratoxin. And then on the test 6 months later, then the gliotoxin is completely gone. And then the ochratoxin is through the roof, because now that's being bound up and pulled out. Now you do have to make sure that you don't have any ongoing exposure to any of these toxins, right? Because if you still have mold in your home, you're still going to be exposed to that. Or if there's a new exposure in some way to this ochratoxin, then that might confuse the picture. But we we've done the testing and we know that there is no new exposure. And so we can feel safe knowing that this is just the fact that the body is now opening up these pathways and you're able to excrete so much more. So you want to ride that momentum for sure, because those toxins are energy drainers. And if you want to not have a lot of energy, get exposed to a whole bunch of toxins. When we're talking about heavy metals, we're talking about things like mercury. 100,000 pounds are dumped into the oceans every year. Everything that comes out of the ocean has mercury in it, unfortunately. You've got mercury fillings. With chemicals, there's about 86,000 different chemicals that we're exposed to on a regular basis. About 287 chemicals are found in baby's cord blood, right? So this is the umbilical cord between the baby and the mom. So just after it comes out, there's already all these toxins in there. About 500 different chemicals you're exposed to before you even leave the house in the morning when you're commuting. And then with mold, about 50% of all buildings in first world countries have water damage, and most of those have molds. Most people don't believe they've had mold exposure. Maybe if you're watching this video right now, you're like, there's no way that I've had mold exposure. But if you think about it, have you ever lived in a place or worked in a place or had a car that had a leak, a leaky roof, a flood in the basement, or a busted pipe? And it could be at any point in the house's history. It could also be maybe you were 5 years old and you lived in a place for a month that was really moldy, right? And you never did anything to get the toxins out of your body, because you have to do very specific things to get these mycotoxins out. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful for you today. If you learned something new, go ahead and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. It helps with the Google algorithm and gets this out to more people. Hit that subscribe button if you want to learn more and follow us on how to take your energy to the next level. I'm Evan Hirsch, and I'm the Energy MD. See you soon.